Grab your J's, grab your arm sleeve. It's finally time for the Locked On Illini season preview spectacular. Let's go.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Locked On Illini. Thank you all so much for making us your first listen each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. My name is Sonny Verma, your host here at Locked On, where I continue to provide you coverage daily, every single day. And lately, that includes the weekends. Why? Because I love talking Illini sports and you love supporting Illini sports. You can do exactly that by making sure you hit the like button on this video and making sure you're subscribed to the channel as we continue to grow our community bigger and bigger. Today is the day we've all been kind of waiting for. It's going to be the official season preview of the upcoming season, which starts on Monday evening against Jackson State. And for that, I'm bringing on a special guest. I think you're going to enjoy the show. All right, basketball season starts Monday evening as the Illini are going to take on Jackson State. It's a game that I will probably preview on Monday, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And so what I wanted to do was bring in the guy, there's a lot of excitement when it comes to Illini basketball, and this guy generates a lot of excitement when it comes to Illini basketball. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. That's my good friend, Greg Waddell from Sleep. Thank you so much for coming.
Sonny, I'm hyped to be here, my friend. You do a great job with this, and this team brings me a lot of excitement, good and bad. So let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're going to go over this, and let's just start right off the bat. What we're going to do is basically go through some of the major statistical categories and do our best to look into the future and figure out who leads the team in these categories. We're going to start off with points, just because I think it's the easy place to start off, but I also think it's a perfect microcosm because for me, I don't know necessarily we don't know who each other's going to pick. I wasn't even sure who I was going to pick until about 5 minutes before we started recording. So I'll give you the floor first. Who leads the Illini in scoring this upcoming basketball season?
My initial look at this was that this is like the only category that's guaranteed easy. However, the more I sat on it, I'm like, it might not actually be easy. I'm sticking with the easy answer. I think it's Tomislav Ivišić. I think he's Illinois' best player. I think he should have the scoring production that mirrors being a potential first-team All-Big Ten player. However, the more we get intel on the rest of the parts of this team and the closer we get to the season, my view of this team has flipped from Big T's going to do everything for them to, wow, this team has a lot of guys that might score a lot. One of them being Kylan Boswell, who I almost went with for this answer with the exhibition performances he's been putting together. I do think Kylan's going to be very close to Big T at the end of the year. Those two should be at the top, but give me Big T.
Greg, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going flip-flopping between those two exact players. Now, I think it's going to be interesting to see what the lineup looks like at the start. It looks like they're going to start Keaton Wagler at the 2, or again, we've heard them talking about putting Keaton at the point guard. I don't know if either one is a natural point guard. So the way I see it, and maybe, again, this is me looking into the future, maybe this is a hot take, but at some point, I think when Mihailo gets accustomed to college basketball here, he kind of takes over the point guard role. And I think that's the best case scenario for a guy like Kylan Boswell. The last, I think, 3 weeks of the season, he averaged almost 17 points per game. The thing is, and I think you agree with me here, is the leading scorer on this team might score 15 points per game. Just because they might have 4 or 5 guys that can average double figures. So I'm going to go with Kylan with the idea that he's going to get off the major ball responsibility. And Mihailo, I just think the more I see of his tape, he's a guy who, before it became pretty obvious that Wagler was going to start at the 2 or start in the starting lineup. I won't specify what position. One of my hot takes on the show was going to be that Mihailo would lead the Big Ten in assists. I know Braden Smith is the locked-on favorite, but it was just one of those where I like his game, and I just think him putting his head down, attacking the rim, finding open shooters, it would have been one of those, hey, it could happen type of moments. But it looks like Petro's going to be coming off the bench, but Kylan, I just think, is better suited. He played better when Kasparis was kind of gone for a little while. I know he's got the size for a point guard, but I'm going to go with him as my leading scorer, averaging right around 15 to 16. But again, this could be anybody.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to this one again. It took me a while to figure out, but let's go with rebounds.
It's got to be tough to beat Big T here again. 7.7 last year should go up, I think, in theory, even though his brother's there and you can see the Twin Towers. His brother's not nearly the rebounder that he is. I am like, again, how good is Mirk and what is his role? Because Mirk looks like an amazing rebounder at the 4 right now, but I guess I'll play it safe, even though I don't necessarily want to. I think Big T should average something along the lines of 16, 17 points and maybe 8 rebounds this year, which would have him leading both categories for me.
Yeah, I wanted to pick Mirk so bad for this, but ultimately I also agreed with you on Big T just because David, as good as he looks, he's also a freshman in the Big Ten Conference. So how many games is he going to be taken out early? He's got a lot of energy. Is he going to get in a little foul trouble? Tomislav plays at a slower pace. He's obviously a veteran. He's at 22, 23 years old right now. He doesn't make the same mistakes as David. So I think per minute, David probably is going to average more rebounds than Ivišić, but just when it comes to overall season averages, I think I agree with you with Ivišić. Now, I'll be honest with this third category, I have no idea. Assists. Last year was pretty obvious to guess a guy like Kasparis would lead the team in assists. You take a look at the guys coming back. You take a look at what you and I have both heard about what this offense is going to look like. Greg Waddell, who leads this team in assists next year?
Gosh, this is probably the toughest one for me.
Yep.
Let me start with this. I think Wagler is going to be very good. I don't buy the outlook on him as the starting point guard on this team at all, from what I've seen. I just don't believe it. If I'm wrong, I will eat my words and you can all throw eggs at my face in like a week. But I've compared it on the channel. I've compared him to a Christie brother. I think he's got some Cam Christie to his game where he might be a future NBA player. To me, he's like this combo guard with size that has a really pure jumper. I just don't really understand the pitch of we want him to run our offense when Kylan has ran high-level offenses before as the primary point guard. And, I mean, Petro, why is Petro here if you're going to make Keaton Wagler the starter? I call him Wagler because Wagner was the Michigan thing, and endearingly, I'm comparing him to how good Franz was early in his career. So for me, I almost immediately eliminated the idea of him leading this team in assists. I'm going to go back to Kylan because I do buy that there's some concerns with Petro. I think the best case version of this team, though, it's Petrovic pretty easily. Like, I think you want him to be amazing. And by conference play, he's a 6 assists a game guy, and Boz and Wagler are next to him hunting shots. But it sounds like early in the season, whether it's been due to the injuries or just the lack of availability, that doesn't seem like what the team wants from him. So Kylan should have the opportunities to do it.
So you think it's going to be Kylan?
I think it's going to be Kylan. And I guess if you really wanted to get super crazy, is there a world that Mirk's involved here?
Not just Mirk. I think either of the two bigs. The way the offense ran through Tommy Ivišić, this is why I'm not as worried about Mihailo coming off the bench and not having a natural point guard on this basketball team. At the end of last year, there was a lot of give and go between Tommy Ivišić and Will Riley, and that's kind of when the offense really picked up right before the Big Ten tournament started as well. Like, again, this is one of those categories where the assist leader might just end up having like maybe 5. Ultimately, just because of what I said earlier, I went with Petro here, just because if I'm talking about him eventually starting with the other categories, then I have to keep that consistent. But, one of the hot takes I have, Greg, for this upcoming season, and this one I'm going to use for this show, is that I think Illinois has had a good success when it comes to triple doubles over the last few years and players producing triple doubles. I think this year we could have 2 different guys produce triple doubles. Who those guys are, like if I gunned to my head right now, I'd probably pick like Tommy Ivišić and David Mirkovic, just because of how much the offense can run through those guys. And I can see a game where one of those guys ends up with 10 dimes, along with the rebounds and scoring. But, that again, that's why I pick a guy like Petro. Even if he comes off the bench and plays 25 minutes and he gets 4.5 assists a game, quite honestly, that might lead this team.
Yeah, I think if I look at assists the more I'm listening to what insiders say on this team, and just from what I saw with my own eyes from the exhibition that was available to watch, I feel like I buy a vision of this team where there's 4 different guys between 2 and 3.5 assists a game. Exactly. Like I don't think, barring Petrovic being what we thought he might be when they signed him, I don't think there's a world where the assists are distributed that way, where one guy's kind of making the plays for others. And I think that's kind of what you wanted to build this year, right? Brad very clearly didn't like how Kasparos dependent last year's team was. Even though Petro can be used like that, it's pretty clear they don't want to. It's the beauty of Kylan, depending on what Wagler actually looks like. It's the beauty of what his skill set is supposed to be. It's also the beauty of having 2 guys in the front court that can really pass the ball. It might be really dangerous, honestly, if Mirk and T and Kylan and Wagler are all around 2 to 3 assists a game. I don't really know how opposing teams prepare for that, because it could be any given guy exploiting a mismatch any night.
Exactly. And right after this, Greg and I are going to continue talking about who our flag players are and what player we might have cooled down on a little bit. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real, actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pull up Game Time every time I'm thinking about going to a game. I see the price and I click on the button so I can see exactly what the view from my seat is going to be. If I like it, I'll go ahead and purchase a ticket. It makes it that easy. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, the promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go. Download Game Time today. And welcome back. We're going to continue previewing the season. And next up, Greg, it's a little segment that I started right here on Locked On where I called it the flag player. Basically, on this basketball team, you get the opportunity to plant your flag. And now in the future, when after hundreds of thousands of people watch this video, when they see player X have a good performance in a certain game, they're going to be like, you know what? Greg planted his flag on that guy. That's all due to Greg. Who's your guy on this upcoming team?
You know, it doesn't feel like I can even claim it personally, since it feels like the whole world's doing it. Yeah. I love this flag concept. It has to be Mirkovic. It has to be. I think he's amazing. I've compared him just off the limited stuff that has been shared in the last 2 weeks visually. He reminds me so much of Draymond Green. And we heard the early reports. Obviously, you go watch clips and full games of him overseas. I liked what I saw him mixing it up at the World Nike Hoop Summit in the summer. To me, a huge element of all things David Mirkovic, the basketball player, is his competitive edge and his psychopathic tendencies. Now, when he first showed up, I think the stories of like, he's mixing it up at practice, like the staff has to be careful with him. It kind of scared me, because I'm like, do you want your 8th guy to be that? I don't know. He can be an enforcer off the bench, but it just feels weird with a team with so many guys hurt to have a guy that's that much of a wild card. Then you watch the first game, and with how versatile he was and how much it was backed up in the stat sheet, like the only thing I can comp it to truly was when Draymond Green showed up at Michigan State all those years ago. You just had this dude who like wanted to kill all these NBA players around him, and over time it grew from like, that's funny, he's young, to like, oh my gosh, we have to build around him. He stands for everything this program should stand for: toughness, leadership, competitive edge. That's all Brad Underwood, right? So I think Brad's going to adore him. I'm keeping my eye on game 1, because point blank, I don't trust Brad Underwood to come into a season with the right approach to what this team should be. I think time and time again, we've seen him think his team should be one thing, and then by December completely flip it into something else. It's one of the things he's best at, but I won't be stunned if he's like 8th in minutes in the first real game with people available. And, Rickhouse is leading the team in minutes at the 4. And I don't think that's good for this team. I think you've got to build around this guy that Mirk is. And I think by the end of the year, there is a world. We ranked him 21st in our Big Ten player rankings in the entire conference. I think there's a world that David Mirkovic is this team's best player in March.
I think you're exactly right. My everydayers in here know that I've been a big David guy all off season. So, my source in there has been telling me that David had the best off season of anyone, not the best off season, the most surprising off season of anybody in that gym. And so he was, for the longest time, going to be my secret weapon here. Like, I know who my flag player is going to be, but now at this point, I'm going to let you claim him. And quite honestly, the secret's out. You saw that game against Illinois State, and you and I have both heard the same thing about when it comes to how he competed against, legit bigs when it comes to the Florida Gators. I think he's going to be a fantastic player. For me, originally, my guy was going to be Mihailo Petrovic, just because he committed to us when Andrej Stojaković had all the attention and eyes, because he was on an official visit, and it was kind of swept under the rug. And people like, who is this guy? Nobody had heard of him, including me or any of the other Illini insiders. No one knew this was coming. And then I was going to switch off to David Mirkovic. I'm like, you know what? I've been hyping up Mihailo enough on this channel. I'm going to switch to David. He's the guy who, if my eyes or the eyes I trust are telling me he's having the most pleasant offseason, maybe I'll surprise people with that. That surprise is out the window, so I'm going to go ahead and circle right back. I just think when I look at this roster, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit when we come up with our final projections of this team, you're down 1 point, you're down 2 points, and there's 25 seconds left. I don't know who Brad is going to run the play for. Just the way the college basketball works now, it's harder to do it for big men. I just think Mihailo, if you look at his tape, he's been in that sort of position before. And I think maybe it happens early on in the season where he's the guy entrusted to make that last shot, and he starts getting noticed more. But I'm going to go with Mihailo as my flag player, a guy who, at this point I might be overhyping just because it sounds like I've been on the show with you, for 15 minutes talking about him. I just think that people have cooled off a little bit too much on Mihailo and what his game is going to eventually look like. But let's move on to the next one, and this is going to be kind of the opposite. And I usually try to keep vibes very positive here at Locked On Illini, as my everydayers in here know. But I do have to ask the question: if we're going to plant our flags on someone, then you and I, as much of Big Ten basketball and Illini basketball as we watch and hear and talk to people who watch and listen and hear, there's got to be a guy who on your team or on this upcoming team you think, well, let's slow it down a notch, or you think that maybe he's not going to be as good as some expectations might be. Who's your guy?
I think for me it has to be Wagler, and I've tried to drive this point home for about a month now. The only reason the answer is Wagler here is because the expectations that have now been placed on him by his teammates and coaches are absurd. And unless he is a lottery pick level talent, they shouldn't be speaking about him this way. Now, maybe he is. Maybe they genuinely believe he is. I don't know why else Brad Underwood would compare him to Ayo Dosunmu. The same time Kylan Boswell is just like, yeah, he's cold. He's cold. He's one of our best players. Like, it's so rare for teams to do that. It almost makes me believe it's authentic. But again, I thought he just looked really tentative in the exhibition game that was publicly available. I think the people I trust, I know you probably have better sources than me because I didn't hear as much about Merck in the summer, but the people that I've talked to love Wagler, but also say a big part of his game is like he doesn't really want to step on toes. He's kind of passive. I don't know how you square, like, he's a one and done lottery pick with he's really passive. I saw the passiveness in the exhibition. He is a great catch and shoot guy. And if we kept those expectations to just like, he's a freshman we like, I think we'd be coming in here like, oh my gosh, he's going to be better than we think. But the bar has been set by his coach and his point guard that he is a mix of Ayo Dosunmu, Kasper Siakajonas, and Will Riley. That's just insane to me. Even if this kid is very good, I think it's going to be really hard to live up to that. So for me, I'm still with you on the Petro stuff too. I think that swung too far in a negative direction. My ideal version of this team has Petro, Boswell, Stojaković, Merck, and Big T on the court at the end of games. If Wagler earns something more than that, it's a massive testament to him, but I think it would do him a big favor to reel back in those expectations.
Yeah, I feel like, unfortunately, and I hate saying this, this is the easiest one when it comes to all the categories we've listed. And this is not anything against Keaton, like you were mentioning. All off season long, I was saying, you know what? I'm hearing really good things about Wagler. Now I think that if he's the seventh guy on this basketball team, we're in really good shape. And then Brad does what he does, where he picks a guy and he also, in my opinion, these are my words, he puts unfair expectations on a guy like Keaton. Like, a lot of people shared your opinion on Wagler in that first exhibition match against Illinois State. But it's one of those where it's because of what we had just heard weeks earlier. If you take Keaton for what he is, right? Well, I think Composite had him at like 150th ranked recruit in the country. If you look at it through that lens, you're like, you know what? Hey, he was poised. He didn't make any mistakes. Illinois might have a player when it comes to Keaton in that, even though, despite the fact that he's a freshman, but it's just unreal because I went through this a year ago with Ben Humrickhouse, right? We all heard it, the Dalton Connect, and Brad calling him the best shooter he's ever coached and whatnot. And so there's a buzz about Ben every time he was on court. And unfortunately, Ben's just not that type of player that could fulfill that sort of expectations. And I feel like Brad just did it again. And it drives me crazy because he's going to do this again next year. He's going to pick a guy, and it's just a never-ending cycle. And so I hate to do this. Disappointing in the sense of what projections have been put up forth on him by his head coach and his teammates, like you said.
Yeah.
Not me personally. I still think he's going to be a valuable player on this basketball team and one who I think is going to have a big role by the time Big Ten season rolls around and he's grown accustomed to everything.
Yeah.
But not the lottery pick. Like, he's a kid who, if you told me his end of season averages were, 7 points, 3 rebounds, and he played 25 minutes, I'd be like, hey,
good season. Yeah.
That's all you asked for. But, one and done, I think that's just a little silly. And I hope, fans temper their enthusiasm a little bit.
Well, it's jarring too, not to jump back in, but like the confusing part of it to me is that I feel like so much of what was sold from Underwood, assistant coaches, and the media that cover this team, which, I mean, you're technically a part of too. I'm technically a part of it, right? We're all working on like, what is this team, trying to figure it out. I feel like the story that has been sold to us from the coaches has been, wow, we didn't like how young we were. Wow, we were like the one and done thing kind of wasn't great. We want retention. Look at how much we've brought back. And they're simultaneously preaching retention with we're going to get older with, wow, this 4-star fringe top 100 guy is a one and done lottery pick. Why? That goes so against what you're selling as the vision for the program after last year. And look, to give Keaton some credit here, or just the hype some credit here, I think last year with the Humrickhouse comparison, it really felt like that was Brad's doing, Brad's baby. And the people that were watching practice made note, oh, Brad is saying this, but we'll wait and see. With Keaton, like, there are some really smart people that have seen practice that are saying they have seen this. And I tend to believe there's a little more substance to it. I would just put the caveat on it of this. You've had so many guys unavailable that it's entirely possible Keaton has looked this good against walk-ons and guys that are not rotation players. And when you get Stojaković back and Petrovic back, he's not going to look nearly as good against the players that are starter caliber for this team.
It's crazy. We haven't even brought up Stojakovic's name when it comes to this team. But again, that just kind of shows you how deep this team can be. Greg, just to kind of wrap things up, overall, where do you see this Illini team finishing in the Big Ten Conference? And ultimately, when the season is over, how far does this squad get?
I've really swung positively in the last week. I would have said 4th coming into really a week and a half ago until we got a real look at this team. And the reports coming out of the Florida scrimmage mixed with what they looked like in the exhibition, mixed with the fact that it seems every analytics service in America has Illinois as high as they've ever been in the preseason. I think there's something I'm missing. I really do. I think there's a world that this team wins the conference. I would not have said that a week ago. I think if I had to bet right now, I would put them 3rd. I do think both Purdue and Michigan are top 5 teams in the country, but I think it's a lot more likely that Illinois is in a tier with them than it is they are in a tier below them with UCLA, with Wisconsin.
Fair. The way I see it, I think Purdue is clearly on their own tier. After that, though, between Michigan, Illinois, and UCLA, I could go either way with all three because I host an Illini-based show. I'm going to go ahead and put them on top at number 2. But like you said, there's a scenario out there, not likely, but possible, that Illinois could win the conference. And even I didn't think that was necessarily the case. I'll jumpstart on where I see them ultimately going, just because I want to follow up on some thoughts and then get yours. I think this is another Elite 8 team. It has to be. I don't even know if a Sweet 16 at this point with this roster is going to be acceptable, just because we've gotten older and the teases that are there. But it's all going to base around, I don't know who the superstar on this team is. And that kind of worries me a little bit. In one sense, last year we had one, arguably, especially in the first couple months of the season. But with freshmen, you ride the ups and downs. I think the floor on this team should be much higher than the years previous, just because of the guys that we've brought in. But is it David? Is it Petrovic? Is it Keaton? Is it Kylan? Does he take another jump? What I want to see from this team before I'm confident saying, yeah, let's get to the Final Four or beyond, is who's the guy who's going to be the All-American on this basketball team. Right now, if I had to guess, it would be Tomislav Ivišić. But Tomislav is a very good basketball player. I don't think he's a guy that can carry your team through a tournament. And so that's why, for me, Elite 8, I think is, the floor would probably be Sweet 16. Well, it's hard to say that for a Brad Underwood team, but you know where I'm going with this. When it comes just to talent, I think it's got potential to be an Elite 8 team. How about yourself?
Definitely potential. I mean, I think they have national title potential. And I think there's only been, well, go back to the Kofi Io years. There's definitely been years coming into the season you're like, this team could win it all. Yeah. I'll be completely honest, and I think people, if you don't know my background is that I'm a Michigan fan, and obviously you guys have owned me for 8 years, Daddy Brad, as I call him. I still struggle with March expectations for this program, and maybe that's a cop-out. I think it's totally reasonable for Illinois fans to set the bar where you set it. This team on paper, I think, should be a second weekend team. But I say it all the time, March is an incredibly fluky, fickle beast that all the time teams who are deserving of more don't get more. And at this point, it only is a matter of time. I think as he signed this extension, I think the hope for Illinois fans is that his career has a Matt Painter-esque arc, where he goes from the guy that for 15 years was amazing, but couldn't get it done in March, and then all of a sudden had that team, that player that did. To me, this team does not have that player, kind of to what you said. It's a great team. Right. But a bunch of great Brad Underwood teams have fallen short before. I would be a bit surprised if this is the one that does. I expect them to fare better in the Big Ten than I do in March. That might mean win the Big Ten and lose in the Sweet 16. That might mean finish third in the Big Ten and lose in the round of 32. But to me, I'd set the over-under at 1.5 tournament wins, and I'd probably take the under, even though it doesn't sound good to say out loud.
Greg, I appreciate your time here. Just in case the audience doesn't know where to find your work, can you let them know?
Yeah, if you want to just come back when Illinois beats Michigan for the 14th straight time and watch my reaction to that, you can find it at Sleepers Media. Carter and I and a bunch of our friends do game previews and recaps for every big game in college basketball. We got the Sleepers podcast 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. So thank you, Sonny, for being here. You do a great job with the show, man.
The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who's going to score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when it's your team making that extra push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And that's going to just about wrap it up. Special thank you again to Greg for jumping on Locked On. Hopefully it won't be the last time this season. I know he's holds a certain sort of status with the Illini fans. Sometimes you love him, sometimes you hate him. But again, he's a very busy guy. And the fact that he took about 20 minutes to spare here on Locked On, where we got to do the season preview spectacular. It's a moment I've been waiting for a while. Look, we all love football, but when it comes to basketball, that's what really gets Illini fans excited. And this team, I think, is going to make fans very excited as well. I'm really excited about this season. Just remember, you're not going to miss anything as long as you're subscribed to this channel every single day. Whatever conversation is being had about the Illini, you'll find right here. That's what I like to present to you guys. I'll try to bring in analysis when I can. I'll try to bring in expertise when I can. But most importantly, the feedback I always get from you guys is you enjoy the conversational tone of my show. And that's exactly what I try to keep doing as often as I can. I promise you, I'm going to make Locked On your one-stop shop for college basketball season. Thank you for making Locked On Illini your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Big Ten. Greg Shimon breaks down the most exciting conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championship and every game in between. Find Locked On Big Ten on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That's it for me today. I'll have more content for you all week long. Until next time, ILL.